My brother screamed, "You stole from me after I got the job he'd always wanted." I replied, "I earned it." Then Dad smashed my car window for playing dirty. So I called the police and said, "You asked for this." I'm 34 years old, a single dad of 2 incredible kids, and for most of my life I've lived in my older brother Derek's shadow. Growing up, our house wasn't divided. It was a monarchy, and Derek was the crown prince. If Derek brought home a B+, Dad blamed the teacher. If I brought home an A, Dad questioned whether I'd cheated. When Derek stole another kid's bike in middle school, Dad laughed it off as boys being boys. When I got caught doodling in the library book, I lost every privilege for months. I stopped expecting fairness early, but I refused to become like them. My mom passed away from cancer when I was 12. After that, Dad's favoritism hardened into something colder. Derek became the son who could do no wrong, and I became the one who was always expected to absorb every disappointment. I still remember standing outside the kitchen after Mom's funeral, hearing Dad mutter, "At least she got to leave." Whether he knew I was there never mattered. I decided that day I would build a different life from his, even if I still spent years hoping he'd eventually see me. I married young and became the father of Grace, then Caleb 3 years later. Their mother left when Caleb was still a baby. She admitted she wasn't meant to be a parent. It hurt, but I respected her honesty and focused on raising my kids. For 6 years, it was just the 3 of us. I worked in tech, took freelance coding jobs at night, and slowly built a career. Derek, meanwhile, bounced from one doomed startup to another. Dad emptied more and more of his retirement savings into every new $1 million idea. Luxury pet grooming apps, sushi delivery drones, and whatever came next. Every failure became someone else's fault. Every bailout came from Dad. I never asked either of them for anything. I paid for community college myself, worked nights at a grocery store, contributed to open source software in my spare time, and kept moving forward. Eventually, those late nights paid off. A major software company contacted me about leading a regional AI project. At first, I thought the email was fake, but after weeks of interviews, technical assessments, and meetings, they offered me the position. 6 figures, excellent benefits, relocation support, and flexible remote work. So I could still be there for Grace and Caleb. I sat in my living room holding the offer letter while my kids played nearby, and for the first time in years, I let myself believe my hard work actually mattered. I waited until the next day before telling Dad because experience had taught me not to expect much. Even so, I called him. "I got offered an incredible position," I said. Before I could finish, he interrupted. "Wait, is this the same company Derek applied to?" My stomach tightened. I didn't know he applied. Dad went quiet before saying, "They turned him down but hired you. They told me they'd followed my open source work for years." Another long silence. Finally he muttered, "Don't let it go to your head." That was it. No congratulations, no pride. I ended the call before the disappointment could settle in. I wasn't going to spend another night chasing approval that had never existed. The following Sunday, we met for our usual family lunch. I almost kenneled, but I refused to hide from either of them. Grace and Caleb loved seeing their grandfather, and I wanted one normal afternoon for their sake. Derek barely acknowledged me before saying, "Hope you enjoy the job you stole." I looked him straight in the eye. "I earned it," he laughed. "You just got lucky." Dad leaned back comfortably. Derek was probably their first choice. Then they made their decision. I replied calmly. They hired the person they believed was qualified. Derek's expression hardened. "You think you're better than me now?" "No," I answered. "I think the company evaluated us and chose who they wanted." "That's not my decision, and I'm not apologizing for it." Dad scoffed. "You've always been full of yourself." Normally I would have swallowed the insult to keep the peace. This time I didn't. "No, Dad. I've spent years staying quiet while you excused everything Derek did and dismissed everything I accomplished. That ends today." The table fell silent. Caleb stared at me nervously while Grace stopped stirring her lemonade. I softened my voice. "We're leaving." I stood, gathered the kids, paid our bill before anyone could object, and walked away without another word. Derek shouted after me that I was acting dramatic. I never looked back. Driving home, Grace quietly asked, "Daddy, are you okay?" I smiled into the rearview mirror. "Yeah, I finally am." For the first time in my life, walking away didn't feel like losing. It felt like protecting my family. The following week, I buried myself in work finishing projects at my old company, while preparing for my new role. Life felt a whole lot better, without all the constant fighting. One night, while I was tucking Grace into bed, she hugged my neck tight and whispered, "You smile a lot more now." Hearing that, I promised myself I would never let anybody steal that from me again. 3 days later, Derek showed up at my front door. He knocked, and when I opened it, I stayed right in the doorway. "What do you want?" I asked. He ignored me, walked right past me, and looked around the house. "Not bad," he mumbled. "Dad's giving me the lake house." I stepped in front of him right away. "The cabin?" "Yep, he's signing it over next week." My stomach dropped. That cabin had been in Mom's family for generations. I was the one who kept it in good shape. I replaced the roof, fixed the plumbing, paid for the new water heater, and opened it every spring. Derek hardly ever went there. "Dad says somebody responsible should own it," Derek said with a smug smile. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just pointed at the front door. "Leave." He laughed. "I'm serious. Leave. Now." Something in my face must have changed because his grin disappeared. He walked outside muttering to himself. I locked the door behind him, looked over at my kids, and already knew what I had to do. Next, I grabbed my keys instead of sitting there angry and drove straight to Dad's house. I wasn't going there to ask him to be fair anymore. I was going there to get the truth. Dad was sitting in his recliner watching television when I walked in. He muted it and looked at me. "You could have called." "We need to talk right now," I said. "If this is about the cabin, it is." I stayed standing. "Derek just told me you're signing it over to him." Dad crossed his arms. "It's my property." "It was Mom's family cabin first, and I've been taking care of it for years." "That was your choice." I shook my head. "No, I did it because somebody had to." He shrugged. "Derek needs it more." "For another business that's going to fail?" I asked before he could change the subject. "He already told me he's planning to sell it." Dad frowned. "Don't attack your brother." "I'm telling you the truth. I paid for the roof, the plumbing, the water heater, the insurance inspections, and all the seasonal maintenance. Show me one receipt with Derek's name on it." Dad looked away for a second, but then acted like nothing happened. "You're doing well. You've got a great job, house, and your kids. Derek needs a chance." I took a slow breath. "So because I worked hard, I lose the one thing Mom wanted both of us to have?" "She's gone," he said coldly. "I'm the one making the decisions now." The words hit exactly how he meant them. Years ago, I would have kept arguing until I lost my voice. This time I just nodded. "Now I know where we stand." He looked surprised. "That's it?" "That's it." I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me he called, "Adam." I stopped, but I didn't turn around. "You're making this into something it doesn't have to be." Then I looked back. "No, Dad. You've been doing that for more than 20 years. I'm just done pretending everything is fine." Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I drove home, and the first thing I did was open the old filing cabinet in my office. Inside were years of receipts from the cabin. Roof repairs, ductwork, insurance payments, new appliances, landscaping equipment, tax records, and pictures I had taken after every repair. I spread everything across the dining room table. Grace walked over holding her stuffed rabbit. "What are you doing?" "Getting some important papers organized." She smiled. "Can I help?" "Yeah, you can." She handed me envelopes while Caleb stacked the photos into neat piles. They had no idea they were helping me build the proof that would one day protect their grandmother's cabin. The next morning, I called an attorney a coworker had recommended. I wasn't trying to sue anybody. I just wanted to know if all the years I spent taking care of the cabin gave me any legal interest in it. The attorney listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked one question. "Do you have documentation?" I looked at the huge stack of papers covering my table. "More than 20 boxes worth." "I do." "Good. Don't confront your father or your brother again until we go through everything." That whole weekend, I scanned receipts, organized photos by date, labeled invoices, and backed everything up to cloud storage. Instead of letting my emotions control me, I built a complete timeline. Every payment, every repair, every visit, and every email about the cabin. By Monday morning, my attorney called again. "Keep collecting everything," he said. "And if your father or brother does anything unusual, document it immediately." "You think this is going to get worse?" He paused before answering. Families like yours usually make things worse once they realize they're losing control. Those words stayed in my head. A week later, my new company officially announced its newest project managers on LinkedIn. Friends started congratulating me. Former co-workers reached out to congratulate me. Even developers I had worked with years before sent kind messages. Mixed in with all of them was one short text from Derek. "Enjoy it while it lasts." I didn't answer. I took a screenshot, saved it with the rest of my records, and blocked his number. If he wanted to get a reaction out of me, he was wasting his time. That weekend, I took Grace and Caleb to the park. We spent the afternoon climbing on the playground, feeding ducks, and eating warm pretzels. Listening to them laugh reminded me why I refused to keep dragging them into all the family drama. As we walked back to my sport utility vehicle, Grace suddenly stopped. "Daddy?" My driver's side window had been smashed. Glass was scattered across the seat and all over the ground. Before I could even react, I heard a voice I knew all too well. "That's what you deserve." Dad stood a few feet away with his hands in his pockets, staring at me like he felt no guilt at all. Caleb grabbed my hand so hard it hurt. Grace started crying. My heart started racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. Instead of yelling, I pulled out my phone, started recording, and looked right at him. "Did you just say I deserved this?" "Yes," he answered without hesitation. "Did you break my window?" He gave me a smug smile. "Maybe next time you'll learn not to embarrass your family." That was all I needed. I stepped in front of my kids. "We're done here." Without saying another word, I called 911. For the first time that day, Dad's face changed. He clearly hadn't expected me to call the police right away. He stood there for another moment, then turned around and walked back to his truck. I kept recording as he left, made sure to capture his license plate, and stayed with Grace and Caleb until the officers arrived. I wasn't covering for Dad anymore. I wasn't giving him another chance to talk his way out of it. For the first time in my life, I chose protecting my children instead of keeping the peace. The officers separated us as soon as they arrived. One stayed with Dad while the other came over to me. I handed him my phone. I recorded everything after we got here. My kids saw it all. He watched the video, looked at the broken window, and then questioned Dad. Dad denied smashing the glass, but admitted saying, "That's what you deserve." He claimed he had only arrived after someone else damaged the vehicle. The officer came back to me. "Do you have any reason to believe he was targeting you?" "Years of reasons," I answered calmly. "This is just the latest." I briefly explained my promotion, the fight over the cabin, and Derek's visit to my house. I also gave him my attorney's contact information and told him I could provide every message and document if necessary. By the time the report was finished, Dad was already gone. The officer told me to keep documenting everything if anything else happened. Save every call, every text, and every visit. "I already am," I replied. Instead of going straight home, I took Grace and Caleb out for ice cream. They deserved at least one happy memory before the day was over. While we were sitting there, Grace quietly asked, "Is Grandpa angry because of your new job?" I nodded. "Grandpa has made some bad choices." Caleb looked at me. "Did we do something wrong?" I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "No, none of this is your fault. My job is to keep you safe, and that's exactly what I'm going to do." That night, I emailed my attorney the police report number, the videos, the pictures of the vehicle, and the repair estimates. Less than an hour later, he replied, "Good. Keep everything. Don't contact your father. Let him make the next mistake." I followed his advice. I blocked Dad's number. But before the block fully took effect, I saved every voicemail he left. Most of them were excuses. Some blamed me for tearing the family apart. One even accused me of turning my own children against him. I saved every single message. Derek later texted me from a different number. "You're overreacting. Dad was upset. Just let it go." I took another screenshot, sent it to my attorney, and blocked that number too. I wasn't wasting another minute arguing with either of them. My time and energy belonged to my kids and the future we were building together, not to their excuses. 2 weeks later, I officially started my new position. The work challenged me, but for the first time in years, I honestly felt appreciated. My manager Jennifer cared about results instead of office politics. During my second week, she looked over one of my proposals and said, "Excellent work. Send this straight to senior leadership." For a second, I almost asked if she was serious. After years of being told I was never good enough, I had gotten used to expecting criticism before praise. Instead, she trusted my judgment without any hesitation. That confidence started spilling into the rest of my life. Grace, Caleb, and I settled into a routine. We ate breakfast together every morning. I dropped them off at school, went to work, helped with homework after dinner, and read with them before bed. Our home felt more peaceful than it had in years. Without constant phone calls from Dad or surprise visits from Derek, the stress slowly faded away. Even the kids noticed the difference. One evening, Caleb looked around the dinner table and said, "It's a lot quieter now." He wasn't upset. He actually sounded relieved. A month later, my first paycheck from the new company hit my account. I stared at the number for a long time. It wasn't just more money. It was proof that every late night, every freelance job, every open source project, and every sacrifice had finally paid off, even while everyone kept acting like Derek deserved more than I did. That night, I surprised Grace and Caleb with pizza from their favorite restaurant. Grace smiled. "Are we celebrating?" "We are." "What happened?" I smiled back. "All that hard work finally paid off." She lifted her soda. "Then here's the hard work." Caleb copied her and almost spilled his drink, making all of us laugh. It was one of those simple moments I had worked so hard to give my kids. I honestly believed the worst was finally over. Then, early the next spring, a certified envelope arrived from a law office. Inside was a lawsuit. Derek had tried to sell the cabin to pay for another business idea, but during the title search, the county found unresolved ownership issues connected to Mom's estate. Instead of dealing with the problem, he decided to sue me, demanding that I give up any interest I had in the property. According to the lawsuit, I was interfering with the legal transfer of the cabin. I didn't panic. I didn't call Derek. I loaded up every box of records I had spent months organizing and drove straight to my attorney's office. He read the lawsuit once, sat it down, and smiled. "This is actually better than I expected." "Better?" "They rushed into court without checking what evidence you have." I opened the first storage box. Inside were neatly organized folders filled with maintenance receipts, insurance payments, tax records, contractor invoices, utility bills, photographs, and years of emails about the cabin. "I brought everything." He looked at the stack of binders, then nodded slowly. "Good. Now we stop reacting and start winning." Over the next few weeks, we built our case one piece at a time. We didn't rely on emotions, we relied on proof. Every receipt for roofing materials, plumbing repairs, ductwork, landscaping, insurance, and utilities was arranged in order by date. Every picture of me working on the cabin was labeled and dated. We even found old emails Mom had written years before she passed away. She talked about hoping the cabin would always be a place where both of her sons could bring their own families. Those emails weren't legally binding, but they clearly showed what she wanted. More importantly, they proved something Derek never could. I had always been there. While he jumped from one business scheme to another, I quietly took care of the cabin because it meant something to me. My attorney leaned back in his chair and smiled. "They think this is just another family argument. Once they see all of this, they'll realize it's a property dispute backed by 10 years of documentation." "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now," he said, "we stop defending ourselves and start making them answer questions." We filed our response, challenged the transfer, and requested a full review of the property's ownership history. We also submitted copies of every maintenance record, showing that I had invested thousands of dollars to keep the cabin in good condition. I wasn't asking the court to punish anybody. I only wanted my legal interest in the property to be recognized. Then we waited. Derek didn't. 3 days later, he showed up at my front door again. This time, I didn't even answer it. I spoke to him through the security camera. "What do you want?" He looked right into the camera. "Can we stop doing this? You filed the lawsuit. You forced my hand." I almost laughed. "No, Derek. You tried to sell property before making sure you actually owned all of it." He rubbed his forehead. "Dad's stressed out." "That's because of his own choices. You could just sign the paperwork." "No." His face tightened. "You're really going to destroy this family over a cabin?" I answered without thinking. "This family wasn't destroyed because I protected Mom's cabin. It was destroyed years ago when Dad decided only one son mattered. Derek stood there for a few more seconds before shaking his head. You've changed. You're right, I said. I finally stopped letting people treat me like I don't matter. Then, I turned off the intercom and saved the entire security recording. It became one more piece of evidence, one more documented interaction. No yelling, no fighting, just facts. A week later, Dad stopped calling and started leaving letters in my mailbox. The first one said I owed Derek an apology. The second claimed Mom would have wanted the family back together. The third accused me of turning Grace and Caleb against him. I never answered a single one. Every letter went into another binder, right beside the police report, photographs, text messages, and all the legal documents. My attorney looked through the letters during one meeting and nodded. He's creating a pattern, and he doesn't even realize it. I just wish he'd stop. He gave a small shrug. People who start losing control usually push even harder. Let him keep talking. Life at home kept moving forward. That spring, Grace started playing soccer, and Caleb became obsessed with building model airplanes. I never missed a game, a school event, or a parent-teacher conference. Those moments reminded me why I wasn't going to waste another year trying to fix people who had no interest in changing. One Saturday, we drove out to the cabin. Because of the lawsuit, Derek couldn't sell it, and nobody had been there for months. The porch needed to be swept, and winter storms had left branches across the driveway. Instead of getting angry, I got to work. Grace raked leaves while Caleb gathered sticks into neat piles. We spent the whole day cleaning the property together. When we finished, we stood on the porch looking out at the lake. Grace smiled. It already feels happier. I looked at the old cedar walls, the porch swing where Mom used to sit every evening, and the water stretching out in front of us. It does. On the drive home, my phone rang. It was Jennifer. Sorry to bother you on a Saturday, she said, but senior leadership approved your proposal. They're giving you more responsibility. I smiled. That's great news. You earned it. After we hung up, I kept thinking about those 3 words. You earned it. For some reason, hearing them from Jennifer meant more than they ever would have coming from Dad. She judged me by my work, not by favoritism. And that made all the difference. The next month, we went to the first court hearing. Derek showed up wearing an expensive suit, but he looked far less confident than he wanted everyone to believe. Dad sat beside him with his arms crossed and refused to look at me. I still gave him a polite nod before sitting down next to my attorney. Derek's lawyer argued that I had contributed very little to the cabin and was only delaying a legal transfer. Without saying much, my attorney placed a thick binder on the evidence table. The judge opened it. Inside were hundreds of pages organized by year, including receipts, invoices, inspection reports, contractor statements, photographs, tax records, and maintenance logs. Your Honor, my attorney said, this isn't speculation. This is more than 10 years of documented care for the property. The judge spent several minutes looking through everything. He stopped at photos showing me repairing the dock while Grace sat nearby as a toddler. Then he reviewed invoices showing more than $14,000 in repairs. Finally, he looked at Derek. Can you provide similar documentation showing that you maintained this property? Derek opened his mouth, looked over at Dad, and quietly answered, no. The whole courtroom went silent. The judge didn't make a decision that day, but as we walked outside, my attorney smiled. The momentum just shifted. For the first time since Mom passed away, I truly believed he was right. After that hearing, Derek started getting desperate. Instead of letting the legal process continue, he began looking for shortcuts. First, a cousin we both knew called and said Derek wanted to work things out. I thanked him for letting me know, but said no. If Derek wanted to negotiate, he could do it through our attorneys. I wasn't interested in another private conversation where he could twist everything I said. 2 days later, my attorney called. Derek's lawyer wants mediation. Should we agree? He thought for a moment. Yes, not because we need it, but because judges appreciate people who honestly try to settle disputes. I agreed. The mediation happened the following week in a conference room instead of a courtroom. A retired judge sat at the head of the table. Derek, Dad, their attorney, my attorney, and I all took our seats. Derek spoke first. Adam, this has gone too far. I folded my hands on the table. You sued me because I wouldn't cooperate. You didn't have to make this so difficult. I wasn't required to. Dad finally joined in. Just sign your interest over. You barely use the cabin anyway. I looked right at him. I've maintained it for more than 10 years. My kids spend every summer there. You know that. He waved his hand like none of it mattered. You've got a good job now. You can always buy another vacation place. This isn't about buying another one, I said calmly. It's about protecting the cabin Mom wanted us to keep. Derek leaned forward. Name your price. I shook my head. It's not for sale. Everything has a price. Not this. The mediator asked if there was any situation where I would agree to settle. I slid a folder across the table. Yes. Everyone looked at me. Derek drops the lawsuit with prejudice. Dad withdraws the transfer. My ownership interest is officially recognized, and neither of you makes another claim against the cabin. In return, I won't ask to be repaid for the thousands of dollars I've spent maintaining it. Derek stared at the folder without even opening it. You're trying to steal it. I looked him straight in the eyes and kept my voice calm. No, I'm protecting something I've spent years taking care of. The mediation ended without a deal, but something important happened afterward. As everyone got up to leave, the mediator quietly pulled my attorney aside. A few minutes later, my attorney joined me in the hallway with the same small smile I had seen after the first hearing. They thought you'd give in, he said. Instead, you showed up with solid records and a fair settlement. That makes a difference. A month later, the discovery process began. Both sides had to exchange records under a court order. Derek was required to provide every document proving he had maintained or invested in the cabin. He barely had anything. My attorney, however, turned over several organized binders, along with digital copies of every receipt, invoice, photograph, and bank statement. During Derek's deposition, he admitted under oath that he had never paid the property taxes, never hired contractors, never bought building materials, and couldn't even remember the last time he spent a night at the cabin. My attorney asked one final question. Then why did you try to sell it? Derek paused before answering. I needed the money. That one sentence weakened almost every argument his attorney had been making. My own deposition lasted less than 2 hours because every answer I gave matched the evidence we had already submitted. When they asked who repaired the roof, I showed the invoices. When they asked who rebuilt the dock, I showed the photographs. When they questioned my financial contributions, I produced the bank records. Facts didn't need much explaining. A week after the depositions, my attorney got another call from Derek's legal team. This time, their attitude was completely different. They wanted to discuss another settlement. We met in a smaller conference room. Derek looked worn out. Dad looked older than I remembered. Their attorney spoke first. Our clients are willing to recognize your ownership interest if you agree to split any future sale proceeds equally. Before my attorney could answer, I spoke. The cabin isn't being sold. Derek let out a frustrated sigh. Then what do you want? I looked right at him. Peace. My ownership confirmed. No more lawsuits, no more harassment, no more showing up at my house or around my children. Dad quietly muttered, You're really cutting your family off over this. I turned toward him. No, Dad. I'm protecting the family that depends on me. The room went silent. Neither Dad nor Derek had anything left to say. For the first time, they seemed to understand I wasn't trying to defeat them. I was simply done giving in. The second mediation lasted less than 30 minutes. Before anyone could start repeating old arguments, my attorney slid a revised settlement agreement across the table. These are my client's final terms. Derek looked over the first page, then pushed it toward Dad. Neither of them looked pleased. Dad's attorney cleared her throat. If we don't reach an agreement today, the court will continue reviewing the property dispute and the pending motions. I looked directly at Dad. I'm not here to drag this out. I'm here to end it. He finally looked back at me. You really aren't backing down? No. Even if it destroys this family? I answered quietly. This family was already broken. I'm just making sure my children don't inherit that damage. Nobody spoke for several long seconds. Then Dad's attorney asked, Can you explain your conditions one more time? I nodded. The cabin is transferred to me completely. Derek dismisses every claim with prejudice. Both of you sign affidavits giving up any future interest in the property. Neither of you contacts my children without my permission. Once that's done, I'll withdraw every remaining motion related to Dad's financial decisions and walk away for good. Derek slammed his hand on the table. You're blackmailing us. I didn't react. No, I'm offering a way to end this. You sued me. I'm simply telling you what it will take for me to settle. The mediator looked toward Derek's attorney. Those are legitimate settlement terms. Derek leaned back in his chair, clearly frustrated. Dad just looked tired. For the first time, neither of them argued. A week later, my attorney called while I was finishing lunch at work. They accepted. I closed my office door before asking, everything? Everything. While we talked, he emailed me the signed agreements. Derek had officially dismissed the lawsuit. Dad had signed documents recognizing my ownership. Both of them signed affidavits permanently giving up any future claim to the cabin. The no-contact provision protecting my children was included exactly as I had requested. I thanked my attorney, ended the call, and sat quietly in my office for a minute. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel like I had won. More than anything, I just felt relieved. That evening, I picked Grace and Caleb up from school and took them out for burgers. Grace could tell I looked different. Good day? She asked. I smiled. A really good one. Caleb looked at me hopefully. Does that mean the cabin is ours now? Yes, I said. It's finally over. He threw both hands into the air. Can we go there this summer? Absolutely. Watching both of them smile reminded me why I had never taken the easy way out. I hadn't been fighting over a cabin. I had been fighting for the place where my children already felt safe. Everything that happened afterward played out just like my attorney said it would. Dad started telling relatives that I had manipulated him. A few believed him. Most stopped asking questions once the court records became public. I never argued with anyone. If people honestly wanted the truth, they could read the court filings for themselves. Those documents spoke louder than anything I could have said. Derek burned through the little financial help Dad still had, left chasing another business idea that failed before it ever made money. I heard little updates from relatives now and then, but I never called to check if they were true. Their lives were no longer my responsibility. I already had my own. When summer arrived, the three of us loaded up the truck with paint, fishing gear, and groceries before heading to the cabin. This time, we weren't fixing years of neglect. We were working together because we wanted to. Grace painted the flower boxes. Caleb proudly helped me sand the old porch swing before brushing on the first coat of stain. We planted flowers by the front steps, fixed loose shutters, and cleared years of leaves from the walking paths. Every little project made the cabin feel even more like home. One evening, we sat together on the back deck watching the sun sink over the lake. The only sounds were birds singing and the water gently touching the dock. Grace rested her head against my shoulder. Do you think Grandma would like this? I looked across the porch where Mom used to drink her coffee every morning and smiled. I think she'd love seeing you both here. Caleb nodded. Then we'll keep taking care of it. That's the plan, I said. Right then I realized something. The promise I had been trying to keep all those years was never really about protecting a piece of property. It was about protecting the feeling Mom created there. A place where family meant love and kindness instead of fear. Over the next few years, my career kept moving forward. Jennifer promoted me because I earned it through hard work, not because anybody played favorites. Every promotion reminded me that my value had never depended on what Dad thought about me. Grace and Caleb grew up happy. They laughed more, stressed less, and eventually stopped asking why Grandpa never came around anymore. The silence that once hurt so much slowly became peaceful. Every now and then, a relative would mention that Dad's health was getting worse or that Derek's newest business had failed again. I didn't wish either of them any harm. But I also wasn't going to save them from the consequences of their own decisions. I had spent far too many years trying to earn love from people who had already decided not to give it. I wasn't going back to that life. Looking back now, the biggest victory wasn't winning the court case or keeping the cabin. It was finally understanding that I never had to prove my worth to people who had already chosen not to see it. Dad never admitted he had spent decades treating one son like a favorite and the other like he barely mattered. Derek never accepted responsibility for his own mistakes. That was never my job to fix. What I could do was tell the truth, keep records, protect my children, and build a better future than the one I grew up with. Walking away wasn't giving up. It was the healthiest choice I ever made. Today, whenever I unlock the cabin door and hear Grace and Caleb run inside laughing, I don't think about the lawsuits, the broken window, or the courtroom. I think about Mom. I think about the place she loved, and I think about the promise I finally understood. Dad lost the trust of his son and his grandchildren. Derek lost the opportunity he tried so hard to take from me. As for me, I gained something far more valuable than either of them ever understood. I earned my children's trust, my self-respect, and the one place that will always feel like home. And I did it without breaking a single window.